I'm John Julius. I graduated from Teutopolis High School in 1999. I went to Western Illinois and majored in law enforcement and graduated in 2002. And then I went back to school and got a degree at Eastern Illinois in physical education, and later got my master's from Eastern Illinois in school administration. And then recently I got my doctorate at Indiana State in school administration as well.
You've become a longtime official. What intrigued you to become a ref?
Well, my dad was a referee, and as a kid, I remember going with him to a lot of basketball games, and I was just very intrigued by the craft and just enjoyed watching basketball. And I figured I would follow in my dad's footsteps and try it myself. So that's kind of how I got into it. Well, the first time I actually was on the floor reffing was a scrimmage, and my dad was a basketball coach for the junior high team at Teutopolis, and he and I would walk up and down the sidelines and referee the practices. So kind of got my feet wet a little bit there. I had no idea what I was doing. And then my actual first time in stripes, I remember it being a girls varsity game at Brownstown. My dad and Dutch Klitzing were working the game, and they worked me in. They switched off every half. They would work with me, and I was quite nervous at the time. I remember that night, and it was a long time ago, but I still remember that, and it was a joy to be able to work with Dutch because he's a legend, longtime referee, and then my dad, of course, that was special too. But I remember Bob Page, the girls varsity coach at the time, calling me out by name and saying, "That's a moving screen. You have to call that moving screen." And I didn't even know what he was talking about. I don't even know that I knew what a moving screen was at that point, but that certainly sticks out.
How long exactly have you been an official?
Well, I started at 16, and I'm just over 40 now, so I think I'm getting ready to start my 25th season, and it's flown by. I can't believe that. Some days I feel like I'm still starting, but then midway through the game, I'm reminded of my older age. So, but I recently went to, it was last year, I went to a camp or clinic, and I asked the fellow I was working with how old he was, and he said he was 19, and I quickly realized, well, I've been in this a long time. I've been working games longer than he's been alive. So, time flies.
What is your favorite part to being a ref?
I think there's many things that stand out that are great things about officiating, but first and foremost, there is a group of guys that I just enjoy hanging out with on the floor, and that to me sticks out as being my favorite part. When you get with a couple other guys and you're officiating together, it's really a fun night, and bad game, good game doesn't matter. When you're with those guys, it's just a lot of fun. So that to me, it sticks out as probably my favorite part of officiating, but there's secondary reasons why I officiate. It keeps me in shape. It gives me something to get my mind off of my stress, and it's just fun to get out and see some good basketball. And I played in junior high, but I didn't play in high school. I started reffing actually in high school, but just to be out on the floor and doing a service and just running up and down the floor is a good time to me. Well, back in the day, when I was first getting started, maybe a few years in, Brad Carroll and Josh Douthit were some local officials, and we were all pretty much the same age, relatively the same amount of experience. So we teamed up and started working together, and that was a load of fun. But now that I've progressed into the college game and I don't do as many high school games, I don't get to choose who I work with. So my assigners, they assign me with people that could be around this area, or they could be anywhere throughout the United States. So likely it's a different crew every night. There are a few local guys that I get to work more games with than not, but generally it's up in the air on who I'm going to be with every night.
Toughest obstacles you face as an official?
Well, off the floor, I think right now, as I've tried to progress through the ranks, I'm almost at the end of my rope. I believe my window's kind of closing because my age isn't on my side, and this is a young man's game. So every year I age, the players don't, and I get a step slower, and they do not, or they maybe get a step faster. So as slowly the game kind of passes you by. So I'd say that's an obstacle for me. Also, I didn't ever really have a mentor as I came up. I kind of was self-taught, and then started going to a lot of clinics, and that's how I learned. A lot of game film I watched. Just kind of did my own thing, and then started going to the clinics to try to help me out. But that was something that I think set me back some. So age isn't on my side. And then on the floor, the obstacles I would say for most people, I think, is being able to communicate effectively. Obviously, through your signals, your calls, you need to communicate, but also on the sidelines. There's a couple coaches over there that you really need to keep in check, and I feel like that's a lot of guys' downfall. They don't know how to do that, and that's one thing at clinics the clinicians are always after. They're always wanting to see when a coach gets irate, how you handle them, how you talk them down. So I think I had an advantage with that, working in law enforcement, working in school and school administration. Just knowing how to talk to people and talking them off the ledge really helped me.
Favorite gyms to officiate?
Well, I have several. Two in high school stick out to me. One being Altamont's gym. The NTC tournament's just a special place on championship night, especially. There's a packed house, and it's just a neat atmosphere. And the gym is so cool because it's kind of dips down, and kind of the nostalgic feeling of that NTC tournament year after year is kind of neat, and seeing all the people that it's kind of a reunion there. So, and then Teutopolis' gym, because I graduated there. It's kind of special for me to go back to the place that I went to school at and be able to officiate games. And I usually don't, or I didn't at the time, take any huge games that mattered a lot because I'm a graduate of there. But that was just a neat place to work. And then in college, I think the gym they're both in Evansville, the Ford Center and the University of Southern Indiana gym. They just got a new one, and it's a really neat arena. And then the Ford Center, I was lucky enough to work there as well, and those are really cool places to work.
The most memorable games that you have called?
Well, one sticks out. It's actually a junior high game. Josh Douthit and I were working it. I think it was T-Town and Robinson. Their junior high gym is not the biggest gym, but when there are a lot of people in it, it's intense. And you could barely hear your own whistle blow. It was so loud. It was a close game. It may have been a regional. I can't remember, but I think it was actually a regional final. And he and I were working it, and it was a well-played game. I think we did a great job, but that was one that sticks out to me. And it doesn't matter what level of basketball, when you have nights like that are that intense, it's a lot of fun. So, and then the other one, I'll just share a story of probably the day that I'll remember forever in officiating. I was supposed to be at Kaskaskia College. This has been January of 19. Supposed to be there, and it snowed, and that game got canceled. And I knew the night before they were going to cancel it. And at 7:15 in the morning, something like that, I'm getting a phone call, unknown number, out of state. And I answered it. I'm glad I did, because it was the call of my life. It was a call to do a game at the Ford Center in Evansville, and against the Aces were playing Indiana State. So that was kind of cool. I was currently a student at the time at Indiana State, which was odd. But I got that call from a JUCO game to a Division I game. It was my first D1 game ever. Televised game, and I thought going into that game, this won't be a ton of pressure because it's snowy outside. There won't be a lot of fans there, and they had the biggest crowd in a couple years there for that game. So it almost packed out the place, and I just looked around and thought, what am I doing here? I was supposed to be doing a JUCO game today. So that was probably the highlight of my officiating career right there. any advancement is fun. It's kind of a thrill of the chase, so to speak. So you start out at the lower levels, you get into varsity, and I think that's a big step for a lot of people when you get to start working varsity basketball. For college, I think it's a little bit different because almost anybody can do high school basketball. You get a high school license, and people need you to work. For college, you really have to go to a camp or a clinic and get seen and get rated, and the assigner has to decide if he wants to hire you or not. So for me, being picked up in some conferences in college was very thrilling because it wasn't a political game for me. It wasn't like, oh, I know so-and-so, he's going to get me in and I can work games with him because he knows people. And it's not like that at all. You really have to have some merit behind your whistle. So for me, that was really nice because I didn't go in knowing anybody really at all. Just went to a clinic and got picked up, and so that was great. At the moment, COVID has shut down some of the games, so I'm a little bit limited. The last couple years, I've done games in Illinois, Missouri, Indiana, Tennessee, Kentucky, so pretty much the 5 states there in the Midwest. So several leagues that I work take me to some pretty far distances. But generally speaking, I'd say half of my games are within an hour and a half, 2 hours. So that's more of my cup of tea, really, because I don't like being on the road and traveling too much if I don't have to. But once in a while I will, and I don't mind it. But generally speaking, Indiana, Missouri, Illinois are the states that I prefer, and get to work most of my games in those states.
How big of an impact has being an official had on your life?
Huge. It's been a huge impact. I don't know of anything else that I've ever done as long as I've done refereeing. I mean, I'm coming up on 25 years worth of my life doing that. That's most of my life. And in the wintertime, that's all I do. I mean, I'm on the road doing games, and I don't do quite as many anymore, especially with COVID and stuff. I'm slowed down a little bit, and I've given up my high school. But when I was doing high school games, I would stay busy, and then when I picked up college, I was doing both. And I mean, I was on the road almost every night, and I mean, that's a lot. And especially when you're working full time, you got a family and kids, and that's another thing. When you officiate, you have to, you got your family to worry about too. And they have been extremely supportive of me. My wife has been very supportive of me since the start. She's never complained about me refereeing. In fact, she goes with me sometimes, and she knows it's a passion of mine, and she's very supportive of me in my ventures. So that is extremely beneficial, because if you don't have your family on board, it certainly makes it difficult to continue doing what you love. So, but yeah, a huge part, and I'm glad it's been a part of my life. I think it's helped keep me in shape. I think it's helped me meet a ton of great people, make a lot of good connections, and it's just been a joy for my life.
Your biggest role model?
Well, my dad, because he's the one that I always watched and I tried to emulate when I first started, and still do. I mean, I still remember how he called games, and still remember guys that worked with him that said, yeah, that I remember working games with him, and he was smooth and good partner and all this. So my dad has definitely been influential in my officiating career, especially at the start. He really doesn't have much of an interest in it anymore like I thought he would. I thought maybe he would miss it when he retired from it. And my first year was his last year. So he's followed me a little bit early on especially, but really doesn't miss it like I thought he would. And I'm afraid when I get out that I'll miss it, but who knows, that remains to be seen. But I would say him, but really other than him, there really isn't anybody that is a role model for me, because I watch the guys on TV and try to pick up some things from them, but really never had a mentor. But that is something that I would recommend young guys doing, is seeking out a mentor. They're not just going to come find you. You have to go find them, and that's not something I never really did. And my dad retired from it, so he could mentor me from a certain standpoint, but into college, he really couldn't help me because he really didn't go down that path. So, but I would recommend that highly. I'm certainly available for anybody that's an up-and-comer that wants to learn anything, and certainly willing to help out anybody that I can. Encourage them to reach out to me. So,
How has the game changed since you started?
well, I don't remember, like 25 years ago, I can't really remember how physical the game was, but I feel like it's gotten more physical throughout the years. So the physicality definitely in college has amped up, and they're trying to make rules to reduce physicality. So they're trying to get it back to more manageable, easier to call games. So I just think of videos back in the 70s, and you know, almost touching somebody was a foul, and nowadays that's just not the case. So certainly physicality is something. People think that the fans have gotten worse. I haven't seen that. In fact, I feel like maybe it's me, because I almost feel like I can handle fans better because maybe I can't hear them as much now, or maybe I don't pay as much attention and can really focus. But I feel like the fans have always been the same, pretty energetic and maybe biased a little bit, and certainly fired up at times. So that part I don't feel has changed much, but I think the physicality part has. Well, the lack of officials is a major problem. I think we're seeing major issues in finding an adequate number of officials, and you know, we're getting to where there's not very much experience in the game anymore, and that's just going to cause even more problems, because we need some of the veteran guys to step up and help train the younger ones, but they're all retiring and there's nobody to replace them. So perhaps not only the pool is smaller, but the talent in that pool shrinks as well. So certainly a big issue, and I don't know what the answer is, but there are a lot of people in the stands that are certainly capable of going out there and throwing on the whistle, because they are calling the game from the stands, and why not go out there and try it? So I would encourage anybody that is a big critic of an official to put on the stripes themselves. It is difficult, I will say that, but it's also very rewarding. So I would just encourage anybody to try it, and like I said earlier, I'm willing to mentor anybody. So if they'll want to reach out to me, I can lead them down the right path and try to make them better. But I don't know what the right answer is to that. That's a loaded question, and it's certainly a big problem that can't be fixed overnight. But I think this younger generation maybe doesn't want to put up with some of the things that are required of it, such as listening to people complaining. And it is a problem. I think it's always been a problem, though. And maybe it's worse, or maybe it's just the media that's pointing it out that it's worse, because there's a lot more. It seems like there's more internet videos you'll see of parents going crazy on the sidelines, or getting ejected, or coaches going after officials that maybe you didn't see years ago just because of the media aspect. But it's always been there. Maybe you just didn't see it. So I don't know. Maybe that's part of it, but I can't see where we would say no media and solve it that way. So, but I'm just going to encourage anybody that has any interest in the game and wants to stay a part of it to come on out and try it. Well, I'm starting my third year as superintendent of schools, and I'm at KZ Westfield School District.
Something about you that not a lot of people know.
I am an introvert, but I have positions that require me to be an extrovert. So that's why they don't probably know. I would rather stick to myself, but I am a basketball official where I have to be kind of extroverted. And same with school stuff. I have to be outgoing and talkative and energetic, but I would much prefer to be behind the scenes and incognito. Well, that was an interesting time, of course, and kind of frustrating not knowing. But one thing about it, I knew that if we weren't going to have games, which at the time I felt like maybe the whole season might be canceled, but I felt like I could still be engaged with the game because I have a lot of films that I watch. In college games, we have these films that we can watch anytime. They're archived. So I knew that I could go throughout my whole last season, the season before, and watch a lot of films. And that's a great way to keep yourself keep your skills up, stay engaged, and improve yourself, actually. So I do watch a lot of film, and I felt like I could just keep myself busy doing that. Now, obviously, I was concerned because I still wanted to run up and down the floor, still wanted to see the guys that I work with, and just enjoy officiating. But I knew that was going to be my fallback plan, that I'd have a little bit of extra time on my hands, and I'd have some time or some things to fill that with. So that was kind of my thought going into the season with COVID looming and not being able to work. But I'm glad it worked out that we got to salvage as much as we could. It wasn't perfect, and there weren't quite as many games to go around as I would have liked, but there were still quite a few to work, so that was good. Well, I think my dad, first off, I want to thank him because he's the person responsible for getting me into the hobby of officiating, and I'm a second generation, so hopefully maybe we can have a third. I've got 3 boys, and one of them may be interested, so that would be really neat to have a kind of a family tradition and continue on down the generations, and hopefully have them be officials as well. But there are a lot of people involved in the game of basketball, and a lot of people involved in officiating, and there's just a ton of people that I appreciate seeing when I go to these games. There are ticket takers, there are people that do the book and the clock, and you see these same faces over and over, and they put a lot into what they're doing as well. So there are just a lot of people around that have just enhanced my officiating career. A lot of athletic directors in this area. I've got assigners that have treated me very well. So just a lot of people that I've met throughout the years that it's really neat to see year after year, and just a lot of good people in the game.
John Julius, longtime basketball official, Teutopolis High School graduate, 1999. John, I really appreciate you sharing your story. I had a blast.
It's my pleasure, Tyler. Thank you.